Is there any questions? I know that was a lot of information there. Someone like to give the mic?
First, I just want to make a quick statement that if you follow what's happened over the last 10 years, the United States habitually violates the UN Charter. And the occupation of Iraq is similar. And invasion of occupation is illegal. And my question is being recognized as natives, is that a step towards nationhood? And or is independence imminent?
We can all take a crack. Sure. Yes, we know what the United States does. And so the question for all of us is, so what's our responsibility in terms of knowing our own history and deciding for ourselves what we want? Does the fact that the United States, is the fact that the United States powerful and sort of careless about other people's rights, is that sufficient to keep us from asserting ours? And so my answer is, it hasn't been, because we do assert our rights, and that's a good thing. For the native indigenous rights, it is, as Julian was saying, it is an avenue. We could actually attain almost all of the benefits of nationhood, perhaps with the exception of national recognition as a nation state. But almost all of the others, including control over our lands, ability to set up our own schools and education, follow our own religion, under the indigenous rights. But it is a way of proceeding, I think.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because it begins with education, which we're doing here now. But then it also has to involve the communications media, because most people are not educated. In the school system, they learn what they see in the television, right, and in the newspapers. And we don't control any of those, right? So we need to move in that direction as well. And then thirdly, we need to be in communities, such as here and elsewhere. You know, we have to reach the Taro Roots community and get them involved and begin pushing in each community against the established officials there. And when we've reached a so-called critical mass, then we'll begin to publicly shame the United States and bring that to the world attention. So it's a long, I consider it anyway, a long process. But on the other hand, Kuhio points out that at least they were able to do it a lot quicker. How many years, Kuhio?
In the Baltic states, from when the movement started
Right.
until when they had the last Soviet troops leave,
Yeah,
that was about 8 years.
yeah. But
But-
then other important things happened, right?
Yes, yes.
The Russian
Collapse of the
Soviet
Soviet
system
Union.
collapsed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And what took place is that the founding of the legislatures was the event that made such significant change. The Soviet Union did collapse, but that was in many ways a separate issue. But it
But timely.
yes, but timely. Yes.
Targeted.
I've been trying to think I love your question, because even like my classmates are always saying, why in the world are you studying international law? Or like, what's so legal about international law? Or, all those questions. I don't know, for me personally, I just realized that, at least, if I want to be more specific about the indigenous rights argument, what I love most about asserting rights claims and human rights claims that are couched and clothed in indigenous rights knowledge and logic is that what you're really arguing is a lot more based. What you're really arguing is that you do not have to become wombs for your colonizer. You don't have to reproduce their kinds of civilization in your own territory. Like, that to me is like so precious, because like, especially when I was trying to understand these, I've been grappling with these issues for the last 3 years in law school, I keep coming back to this question: what is more precious, to be a people or to have a state, or to be a people or to have this body of rights or that body of rights? But really, like, the indigenous rights regime, although the United States tries to politically maneuver itself around, for example, the United States politically, they say legally, but it's really politically maneuvering. They like to try to say that indigenous rights regimes are lesser regimes, that self-determination for indigenous peoples is necessarily internal self-determination. But if you look carefully and you study the subject with a good deal of care, you see that no international law instrument qualifies the right to self-determination with words such as external or internal, diminished or inherited. International law works from principle. It works from principle, and then it adapts to the specific cases of the facts of the case before it. So for me, it's so important as a Chamorro, because, well, on a practical level, where else are we gonna go? What else body of law, what form are we gonna, what funeral pyre are we gonna throw ourselves upon? The US obviously has for my own people, and you can say the same thing for why, the US has only intended to annihilate us. If that's very clear, and we're very clear about that, we're gonna have to find every possible human right and wrestle it to the ground, because otherwise, and we're gonna have to, it's not even about, getting a bigger piece of the pie. It's about choosing its flavor and learning how to cook it for yourself. That's what it's about. And I don't know.
I have a question on this side. Someone
Can
have a
I,
question?
can I just address that real quickly? Yeah, as far as the idea of the reliance on international law and that whole process, to rely only on international law is to miss the point, because international law puts forth this legal and moral aspect to it, but you got to focus on how do other countries perceive this. The idea of putting together a legislature is an aspect of legitimacy, which goes back to what everybody has been saying, but is an aspect of legitimacy that can be supported by international support. So it's not just a reliance on international law. That's a beginning spot, and from that you learn how to work the system.